Hello, everyone. I wanted to talk a bit today about the 14th Amendment, Section 3, to be specific, so people really know what I'm talking about, really know the reason why a certain orange guy should not be allowed to run for office. He's disqualified under the Constitution, Amendment 14, Section 3. And I'm going to read it to you, and we're going to go over it. And we're going to go over some arguments against it and for it and all that. But before I go into it and read it to you, I want to say again, it's because of this clause in the Constitution. That's the reason Donnie Diapers shouldn't be allowed to run for office. Not because I don't like him or I think he's a con man or because he leaves the house in orange face and thinks that looks okay. Um, and by orange face, maybe most of you are familiar with this saying, blackface. In old movies, way back in the day of Hollywood, actors would play black characters in what was called blackface. They would paint themselves a dark color. That's what I mean when I say orange face. He doesn't leave the house in blackface, he leaves the house in orange face. But back to my point, it's not because of all those things I don't like him. He shits himself, he wears diapers. He's a con man, he's a liar, he's a fraudster, he's stole documents. It's because of a clause in the Constitution. That's the real reason why he should be disqualified. And I don't see any legitimate argument against it. So again, it's not because I don't think he shouldn't be allowed to run because I don't like him. That's not how I operate. He shouldn't be allowed to run because of what the fucking Constitution says. That document that so many right-wing type people pretend to take so seriously, especially when the Second Amendment's involved. Then they're all about it. They're all about the Constitution. When the 14th Amendment's involved, Section 3, they ain't about it no more. They just ain't about it no more. They don't believe so much in the Constitution anymore. But let's take a look at the amendment and one more time, because I love repeating myself. It's not because I don't like Donnie. It's not because a lot of people don't like Donnie. That's not the reason. This is the reason, what I'm about to read to you. Again, 14th Amendment, Section 3, disqualification from holding office. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Well, guess what? States have their own courts and constitutions and all that shit as well. And certain states want to disqualify Donnie under the 14th Amendment, what I just read you. And the majority of this clause is basically explaining what kind of officers will be held to this standard. And it lists pretty much any office you can think of. In other words, what they're trying to say is, if you're the president or just any officer and you work for the United States, if you try and rebel against the United States, you can't hold office anymore or in the future. You're disqualified. You have to get the fuck out. In other words, it's not acceptable. It's not a good thing. Also, giving aid or comfort. So there's two things there. There's, did you take part in an insurrection and did you give aid and comfort? I would say both. Again, quickly, what happened that day, January 6th, maniacs were invited by an orange-faced con man, aka the president at the time. Unfortunately for us, how embarrassing. He purposely withheld searches, a strong law enforcement presence, aka the military, etc., while cops were beaten, and they tried to literally breach where congressmen and senators were until someone got shot, and then they decided, okay, our little cosplay coup we're doing right now, I guess it's time to end it because someone just got shot. And after hours and hours of no one doing a fucking thing in the chain of command, which is Trump and his cabinet, they're the chain of command. No one doing a fucking thing for hours as police officers were beaten. People had all kind of different weapons on them. You name it, they had it. So yeah, I would say the aiding and abetting part is there as well. So it's not just taking part in insurrection. It's also aiding and abetting. In my opinion, I believe Donnie is guilty of that. We all saw it with our own eyes. We saw the tweets, we saw the speeches, we saw it all unfold on video for the entire fucking world to see. If you are denying it was an insurrection, I do not take you seriously. I will not even entertain that. There is video, for fuck's sake. We all saw what happened. We all saw who instigated it. And it wasn't just Donnie. It was many people in Congress, the Senate, cabinet members, all kind of motherfuckers. Outside people like Roger Stone. I believe Alex Jones took part a little bit. I mean, Proud Boy people. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, that's what happened. So under this clause in the Constitution, again, it's not Democrats. They're not the reason Donald shouldn't be on the ballot. It's not Republicans. They're not the reason Donnie shouldn't be on the ballot. It's not independents. It's not any group or type of person that you don't like. They're not the reason Donnie shouldn't be on the ballot. This amendment right here that I just read you is the reason Donnie shouldn't be on the ballot. It's that simple. And I don't know how you can argue that he didn't take part and he didn't aid and abet. I don't know what possible argument is remotely plausible. I can't think of one. Of course, what did we hear since this event, January 6th, happened? 1 minute they'll say Antifa and the FBI did it. Okay, if that's the theory you're running with, it was all Antifa and FBI agents. Well, a lot of them went to fucking prison. So that's a hell of a cover to take it all the way to prison. In other words, that theory's bullshit. It's just not true. And then on the other hand, they're proud of it. There's a J6 anthem sung by patriots that have been arrested and stuff that Donald plays all the time and salutes to it. It's crazy. It's crazy. But again, my main point, it's not any type of person or group that you don't like or don't agree with politically. That's not the reason Donald shouldn't be allowed to run. The Constitution, what I just read you, come on. Anyone out there, I know you don't really believe, you have to say it for your party, for your political stance, you have to say it. But I know you don't really believe it, that there was no insurrection and Donnie didn't incite it. I know there's not one human being that actually believes that. They have to say it. In defense of dear leader, though, that's the problem. Otherwise, they would have to admit that it was all a con and a grift and they're idiots. If they believed in any of it, they would have to believe they've been had. They're not smart. They got taken. They're rubes. They ain't admitting that. or they're complicit. They got something out of it, money, a title, something. Uh, they're the people that'll say, try and convince others that, oh, it wasn't an insurrection, really. Were you one of the 100 cops that had to try and stop a mob of thousands of people? Because unless, if you're saying that, if you're out there saying it wasn't an insurrection, then you probably need to have that experience of being a police officer, being paid to protect some property, and a mob of maniacs invited by the temporary occupant, or the temporary leader, is trying to get past you to get to congressmen and senators. I bet in all their opinions it was an insurrection. Whether they want to admit it, despite their political leanings or not. I wouldn't have wanted that job on that day. I know what I would have thought it was if I was a police officer that day that had to protect the Capitol. I'd be like, yeah, this is an insurrection, and it's being allowed to go on, yet I'm being asked to stop it, get in the way of it. I'm probably gonna die. That's probably what I would have thought. Because again, it was a very small amount of police officers versus thousands of people. And it was, it was set up to be that way. Extra enforcement was literally, purposely held back. And that was obvious by the amount of time it was allowed to go on. No one can deny that. No one can deny that. If they wanted to, they could have broke that up way faster. If people wanted to, in the chain of command. Not everyone in government has the right or the authority to call the National Guard or call the military. That's not how it fucking works. And there was a memo put out on the 4th stating that explicitly. Don't do shit unless you go through the chain of command. And that's Trump and his cabinet people. That's the chain of fucking command. So I don't know how anyone could argue. It's about the most solid argument in court I can ever think of. This amendment, this section 3 of the 14th Amendment, and the memo that was put out. Don't do anything unless you go through the chain of command. And that was Christopher Miller that put that memo out. I forget his exact title. I have to look that up again. High-level cabinet official, obviously. He's the one that put that memo out. So for anyone to kind of disingenuously argue due to political bias that it wasn't an insurrection, it wasn't planned, in other words, more help wasn't held back intentionally, well, I just refer them to that January 4th memo, which I'll probably read one day soon and discuss that as well. And I don't understand why that motherfucker's not in prison. I believe what he said on the news when he was questioned about it. At least some fucking journalist at least questioned him about it. He said he was afraid Donald was going to use the military for nefarious purposes. That's why he put those explicit instructions out on the 4th. Don't do shit unless it's through me, or unless it's through the proper chain of command, if you know what I mean. For anyone to argue that, again, military personnel or more police or whatever weren't intentionally held back, you got to argue with that memo. That's kind of hard to do, right? Coming from the literal administration you're trying to argue in favor of. So yes, law enforcement was intentionally held back. The rest of them that were there got their asses whooped if they put up any kind of resistance. And some didn't even put up any resistance and they got their asses whooped. Yeah, it was an insurrection. And yeah, Donnie aided and abetted. And due to this amendment, again, Section 3, 14th Amendment, look it up. It's the Constitution, right? The most sacred document. If you're libertarian, constitutionalist, Republican, you claim to care about this document all the time. You claim that nothing supersedes it, except for maybe states' rights when that's convenient for you as well. But you know what I mean? Well, it's right there in black and white in the sacred document. Why isn't it taken as seriously as the Second Amendment is? Because, oh, that's right, because your guy committed the crime that violated the 14th Amendment. So we just got to overlook that. As a Democrat, though, we all know what they be saying, right? Anyway, have a good day.